Welcome to the Family Matters Mega Summit. Your host for this session is Mila Johansson. Mila is a public speaking, writing, and publishing coach who helps speakers across the globe. Take it away, Mila.
So here's Katherine, and she has a wonderful talk for us. And Katherine is an Amazon best-selling author, 3-time TEDx speaker, and the founder of CEO of Conscious Parent Revolution, a creator of the Guidance Approach to Parenting, a program that applies conflict resolution skills to communicating more effectively with your children and your teens. And Katherine has positively influenced relationships for generations and brought about healing and reconciliation in families that were suffering from disconnection. Wow, that's really, really, really impressive. And today, what is your talk title today? Is it the importance of educational choice for parents?
No, we're going to be talking about teens.
Okay, good. Perfect. Okay. Well, anyway, so what is your background and what brought you to this subject matter, Katherine?
Hi, nice to be here. Sorry for the hiccups. I'm going to talk today about fostering communication and collaboration with your children and teens.
Great.
And I've been a parenting coach for 25 years and have been working with parents around retaliation, rebellion, resistance, and supporting them to transform the dynamics where they feel like they've been fired.
Wow. You mean, yeah, it is hard sometimes with parents and with kids, and especially the empty nest and all the things that lead up to that.
Absolutely. So if you've been parenting for a while and you've gone from feeling so connected and close to your children to the point where you're like, God, what happened? And why don't they consult in me? And where's that warmth gone? And not really knowing where to start or how it happened, then, 75% of behavioral disruptions and breakdowns result from the approach most parents use toward discipline. And rather than bringing them closer together and solving problems, they end up generating secondary problems. And so that's really where I feel most parents are hurting the most and looking for guidance. How do I get out of this? How do I recreate my relationship and dynamic and have the influence that I once had or really want to have and are the reason that I've, created this family.
Exactly. What can we do to repair that?
Well, the first step, I guess, is kind of like acknowledgement, understanding and recognizing that, wow, is there something that I did to create or generate the harvest that I'm reaping? Because I never wanted to have done this. And yet here I find myself with this harvest that I wasn't ever planning on. So acknowledgement, I guess, is the first step, that there's something about the way that I've gone about, working with my kids that has created the resentment flows that I'm experiencing and don't want to have anymore. Once you acknowledge it, and then you're empowered that, wow, I have so much control over the harvest that I reap. What are the new seeds that I can sow in order to create a different harvest? And then we can talk about that.
Because, I've been a parent for a long time and I've taught a lot of families, and I kind of see it as almost a rite of passage. It's almost every teenager goes through that, and they often resent their parents because they've been telling them things all their life, So I think it may be normal. It may even be not so personal as we think if it happens to all of us. I don't know. What do you think of that?
It's interesting. I've had parents say things like, oh, it's normal. This is just the way it is. And I say, no, it's not. It's evidence of resentment flow. And resentment flows don't happen if we don't create the dynamics in which they are created. So if we've been using power over, rewards and punishments, somehow I just lost you guys. The power over, the rewards and punishments, the controlling form of discipline, we all know that, that may get us some results in terms of a shift in behavior, but it doesn't get us the change in behavior for the reasons that we wanted.
Exactly. And I know it's so hard. When I taught kids, they'd all roll their eyes, and even my daughter sometimes, and you have to get over that. And you just have to pretend they're not doing it and keep telling them things. And because I remember when Columbine happened, they interviewed a lot of the kids in a magazine article, and they all said, even though we roll our eyes and act like we don't want to hear from our parents, we really want to know they care. So, we have to persevere through all that, I think, sometimes.
Depersonalizing is definitely important. And also, when we make ourselves the direct object, we think it's about us as opposed to this is the tragic expression of their unmet needs. So when people are struggling, they tend to present in ways that reflect their skill level to being able to manage their internal experience. And a lot of times, adults and children and young adults and just kind of the human experience is that things are happening internally that we don't have the ability to be with, and we become overwhelmed by. And so learning the skills to be able to manage what's arising internally allows us to express ourselves and our feelings and our needs in ways that are more socially acceptable. But that's a rare trait. So in the meantime, when there's a big emotional upheaval internally, it usually exposes itself through actions and behaviors and words that are really the reflection of my internal turmoil and distress. And so we can see those expressions as something that has to do with the inside world of the person who's expressing them, in which case my experience of that person's drowning is not really the issue. The real issue is, oh my God, they're drowning. And what can I do to support them? And let me be with them and wrap a blanket around them and give them some hot cocoa and sit down and just be present. But my focusing on my experience of your drowning behavior shifts everything to my experience of somebody who's drowning, rather than, oh my God, I'm your caregiver, I'm your parent. And this isn't about my experience of how you drown. This is about whether or not I can get into the position where I can be present to you. And a lot of that is the ability to depersonalize and shift our mindset around this is about you, not about me.
Wow, that's powerful. And that's what you help people do, right? I mean, what are some of your steps that you would take someone through to do that?
Well, that's usually one of them. And I have a lot of people that I coach who've been with me for a while, and I'll say, all right, fine, we can talk about your experience of what it's like to be around your child who's drowning. Or we can just forget about your experience of that and like, oh my God, what can we do to support your child right now? Clearly, there's a skills deficit. So let's see if we can just focus on that. What's needed for you to be able to focus on them? And so sometimes that's giving the parent the oxygen mask for them to be with their own feelings that arise around experiencing someone else falling apart. And sometimes that is enough, because I think our deepest love is for our children. And so if we can just make that one shift around, oh my God, this isn't even about me. And oh, wow, I have a choice about how I see this. And I also have a choice about how I'm going to feel about it. So just, taking the power back into our hands, breaking that age-old cycle of you make me feel. Recognizing feelings arise, but it's not my responsibility for you to change your behavior so I feel better. And if I can just beckon up the courage within myself to let you separate, individuate, and fall apart, and to be in a position of wanting to support you through it. I mean, these are all like, huge shifts in consciousness. Each and every one of them is this step to being able to be with a person who needs our support, rather than focusing on our judgments of them. You shouldn't. Why are you? How dare you? I mean, all of the things that often arise around people's experience when they're in the mindset of judging someone else's expressions as if they should be falling apart in a socially acceptable way. My experience of that is, who do you know who falls apart in a socially acceptable way? So everybody just falls apart, and their focus isn't on, is this polite falling apart? Am I falling apart in ways that are polite enough that someone around me will be able to recognize that, maybe I could use a hand here? Or can we just set aside needing to fall apart in a socially acceptable way that's polite in order for us to step up and provide the empathy, support, compassion, and love that people who are falling apart really need?
Well, it's very hard when you're a parent and your children push you away and cut you down. And because I know it happened to me, but I just pretended it didn't. I just had this thing where I went, okay, just pretend it's not, until I went too far. And then I, say something. But when I ignored it, it was almost like 7th and 8th grade, and she would quit doing it. And it was when she was trying to find her independence, I think, from being homeschooled and everything. And I think it was, in ninth grade, and then she met all her friends, and she had to be really nice to them. So it kind of rubbed off on me, but it did happen for a little while. And I tried to just pretend it didn't. I don't know how I knew to say it. She'd say something, and I go, well, thank you, honey. She goes, well, that wasn't a compliment. I go, that's all right. Thank you, honey. And it diffused it, just like as if I had been in 7th and 8th grade and diffused the mean girls, So, I mean, it is hard as a parent, even if it is your kid falling apart. It's hard, like you said,
It is hard. I totally agree. It takes so much self-compassion to be able to depersonalize and focus not on your experience of the other person and their words and behaviors when they're falling apart, to focusing on your experience of it. But that is probably the most important shift you make. And then the next step, I really do believe, is when we start to deeply listen to our children. And when they do that pushing away and pushing back and creating a very clear message that there's a resentment flow, that is like an opportunity for us to self-correct and to lean into, wow, I can see that there's a lot, I've somehow hurt you. And if I haven't listened and integrated that you are your own individuated human with your own feelings and needs, and deeply collaborated with you, about you, for you, and have been in that space of, I know better, I'm your mom, I know better, I'm your dad, that whole narrative about somebody knowing better for someone else, then I think that's our opportunity for just really deeply acknowledging, wow, I'm so sorry that I forgot to include you in this conversation. My concerns, my worries, my sense of something, which is also true, is, gotten in the way of me taking the time to recognize that there's no one who knows you better than you. And I really deeply want to understand what's going on for you right now. And so bringing our children into our conversations about them is pretty central. If we have that mindset that, because I know better, or I'm your mother, I'm your father, and that whole thing about, by virtue of my age or my position, I have somehow dominion over your knowingness, I would say we're on the wrong track. I mean, the best thing we can do for our children is keep them deeply, deeply connected to their inner sense of self.
That's nice. And when you're working with people, are you mainly working with parents or the kids, or both?
I mostly work with parents, and I just want to empower them to be able to, handle all of the things that come up, rather than feel like they need an expert to come in. And yes, I often end up being a little bit of a bridge for that transition, so that I can support them while they're getting their skills up, so that they can start being present in a way that they haven't been. And as they learn how to do that, everything and all the harvests that they reap is completely different, because they're showing up differently. It's that beautiful, experience of, wow, I thought the problem was over there somewhere. And all along, all I really needed to do was look in the mirror.
That's often the case with a lot of things, isn't it?
I mean, humbling as it is, right? We all go, oh gosh, is this me again? I get to up level. There's a lot of up leveling. So it's, I don't know. I just think it's wonderful. I mean, we all make mistakes, and, if we can give ourselves the grace that I'm just a human too. I mean, I think a lot of parents don't allow themselves to just be human and to have made mistakes, and to be able to just take responsibility. If I knew now what I wish I'd known then, I would differently. I didn't, right? And so here's what I now know. And so I'm going to bring that to the table, and I'm going to transform our dynamic, because I now know how to.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And
when you're working with people, do you have like a step system, or what's like your first step, or your first takeaway, or whatever?
Children are people too is step one.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Children are people too. So deeply knowing that children have feelings and needs developmentally. Of course, they're wherever they are, right? So you can't anticipate a child of 6 to have the same developmental wherewithal to handle certain situations than you would expect of your 18-year-old. It's just not possible. And, neurodevelopment and certainly just the linear sequential versus the ability to have someone with highly developed frontal lobes and executive functioning skills being able to do certain types of behaviors, and other people, regardless of age, not having that. And being able to just know that this is a brain thing. This isn't got anything to do with responsibility. It has nothing to do with, any of those other things. Sometimes I hear people say words like disrespectful. And I just go, what does that even mean to you? Because oftentimes what somebody would call disrespectful, I would call the tragic expression of an unmet need.
Oh, I like that.
And so how we label things and describe them to ourselves will absolutely set the stage for how we experience and feel them. So if we change our narrative, we actually change how we feel about it. And we didn't have to do anything to the other person. All of this is just so powerful because we want to, as parents, have the closest relationships where we feel like there's so much sharing of information and we get to influence and bestow our wisdom, of which we have so much. And what gets in the way of it more than anything is that we as children were often talked down to.
Yes.
We as children experienced that we were not taken seriously. Our feelings and needs were not honored. They were minimized. They were marginalized. And so without even realizing it, we tend to repeat the pattern. And just snapping out of it and going, oh my gosh, of course it's a child and developmentally they are wherever they are. And by the way, it's a human being who should be allowed to fully differentiate. And that allows for us to have completely different and very close, but completely different senses of who we are. And I can honor that that person is expressing from within. And instead of kind of pushing it down and squelching it and making it look a certain way so that I'm more comfortable with it, how can I be present with this transformed sense of relationship that I didn't get to benefit from, but I absolutely am committed to bringing forward so that they do feel like their feelings and needs are just as important as mine. And what we're getting to is how I can learn to be considerate of them and they can learn to be considerate of me.
And that is just so superly powerful. And, we're nearing the end here, but I want to ask you, do you have a gift that you're sharing with the participants today? And
I do.
Got it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. So I have, as you mentioned, an Amazon bestselling book called 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point.
Ooh,
And
good name.
so freeparentingbook.com, you can just go there and click and get my free book. And that'll be, if anyone is out there looking for, either a way to transform a dynamic or a new way to approach conflict resolution, this, I believe, will serve you.
Great. What a great gift. I'll go get that today. I mean, my daughter's grown pretty much, but, we still have a few struggles. She's 28. He's still juggling all of that right now, so anyway. I know. Well, you never stop parenting. That's the secret here. And my friend taught me that when I was really, really young. I mean, when my daughter was really, really young, and it's true. The older they get, it doesn't end. People think, oh, high school and they go to college and bye-bye, but no way is that true.
It's not. And we don't want it to be, right? We still want to be able to feel like they are such a light in our lives.
Yeah.
And such a beautiful opportunity to be able to carry this beautiful relationship through all of our days.
I would like to mention to everybody really fast, though, that, this is one talk out of 9 in this hour or this half hour. So you could get the VIP and hear all the talks later at your leisure. And there are a lot more gifts. And make sure you get her gift right now. That's right there in the chat. And you want to take us out with a few words of wisdom and what we should be doing or what we could start with or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, you asked like step 1, and that's, children are people too. And for me, the little drum that beats inside me and has for as long as I can remember, and certainly drove me to wanting to do what I do in the world, is set your children free. So setting our children free gives them the ability to just tune into the little drummer inside of them and to be so in concert with that drummer that the magnificence of what wants to shine through their being this go round on the planet gets to. And it's not about meeting expectations of mine or their, dad or another co-parent. It's about them meeting their own expectations for themselves. And in the world of self-esteem and self-development, the idea is not you to feel good about you if I feel good about you, but for the children in the world to grow up testing from within themselves. Am I proud of myself? Am I living up to what I know to be where I get to give my gifts on the planet, whatever they may be? And I just see us as the stewards of these little beautiful beings, these light beams that come through us, but are not a part of us in the way that we want to mold them to look like us. Instead, we just let their little light shine and help them stay connected to their inner sense of something in them.
That's beautiful. That's a great, perfect ending. Yay. Thank you. Thank you. And have a good rest of the day. And everybody take heart. Listen to this and get the gift. And we'll see you all later for the next talk.
Thank you so much.
Of course. You're welcome.
That was an amazing speaker. Join us in a few minutes when more amazing experts share their expertise. Support our cause by donating to UNICEF. And don't forget to upgrade to VIP, where you'll get gifts and bonuses and replays and more.